Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to talk about all of the books that I read in the month of May. I got through 16 books in the month of May, with 8 of those being audiobooks. I did do a lot of driving back and forth to places in May, so I got through a lot of audiobooks that way. I got 3 ebooks done and 5 physical books. So I'm going to start in order using my reading journal, and then I'll pop up pictures on the screen here of books that I do not have. So the first book that I finished right at the beginning of May, I had started it in April, was an audiobook. It was The Dark Forest. This is the second book in the Three Body Problem series. My hold became available on Libby, and I really enjoyed this. I wasn't sure what direction this series was going to take, but I really enjoyed how they continued the story, and there's quite a big time jump in this, so I'm really interested to see how this series finishes off when my next hold comes available. Then my next book that I finished was a physical book. Sorry, my dog is in the room. It was Where They Last Saw Her. I loved this book. First of all, look at the cover. It is incredibly beautiful. This is a book written by a Minnesota author, and it is about missing and murdered Indigenous women, and the story of one woman who hears a scream in the woods when she's out for a run, and kind of everything that ensues because of that. I found this book incredibly compelling, and I just wanted to keep reading, even though there were parts that were very painful to read. But I definitely recommend this book. It was very good. The next book that I finished was another audiobook. This one I listened to on Spotify, and it is one that had been on my to be read list for a long time, and my library did not have the audiobook. So when I had some time between my holds coming available, I decided to listen to this one, and it was Dracul by Dacre Stoker. I could be wrong on how to pronounce his name, but this is a story about how the book Dracula came to be, based on Bram Stoker's life and his interpretation of it. So a lot of these are based off of notes of Bram Stoker, and this, I believe, is like his great nephew or something. It's some sort of family relation, and it was very interesting to kind of see that parallel, and it was really interesting to kind of dive into the origins of Dracula. I do really like that classic. That was one that I read in high school, I believe, but I really enjoyed it, so it was nice to kind of see this different perspective on it, and I found it really interesting. The next book that I listened to is actually a novella. This one I listened to on Libby, and it is Drift, which is another novella set in the Narrows universe by Adrienne Young. This is an author that I'm working on reading her entire backlist of, so this was one of her pieces of work that I hadn't read yet, and it's always nice to step back into a world that I've been in before, that I enjoy, and to just kind of see more about those characters. So I enjoyed my time with that. The next book that I finished was another physical book. This one was The Rarest Fruit. This is a story about the a slave boy who artificially propagates the vanilla plant, and it is based on true works with some novelization to it, but it is based on a true story. And this is also a translated book from French, I believe. I came across it because I needed the word rarest for one of my Herkiad prompts that I was finishing up. So I absolutely loved this book. I found the storytelling in it very interesting, and it also gave me a glimpse of something that I knew nothing about. And like vanilla is something that we see everywhere in our culture today. So to kind of see the origins of that and find out a little bit of the history in a novelized form was very interesting. I definitely would recommend reading this. The next book that I finished was also a physical book, and I just needed something quick and light and fun. So this is a book, like a little comic set of books called Stranger Planet. This is one that I had gotten for Christmas in a little Christmas package, and it was just exactly what I needed, and it also helped me get a physical book off of my shelf. I read this one in a day. Obviously it was really short, but I did like the humor in it, as well as these little alien creatures encounter human things, and the way they're described not using our human words I found was really entertaining. The next book that I finished was an ebook. It was called And They Were Roommates. I don't remember why I downloaded this one onto my Kindle, but I believe this one was one of my May TBR prompts for a young adult book, and I didn't have any on my shelf at the time. So I picked this one off of my Kindle, and it was an interesting read. I definitely was not the demographic for it. Hold on. Okay, now that I've gotten my dog off of my lap, I definitely was not the demographic for this book. I'm glad that I read it and got it off my Kindle, but I really don't have a lot of thoughts on it. It was just a middle of the road book for me. The next book that I finished was an audiobook. I listened to this one on Libby. I had a little bit of a lull between all of my audiobook holds and whatnot coming available. So this one, I looked to see which ones I had saved for reading later, and this one was available. It's called Smoke and Stars. It is a duology by Marie Lu. I listened to one of her other series, and I really enjoyed her writing, so I think I saved this one because of that. And it just kind of filled that gap. I felt like the story started off really strong, and then as I got into it, I just got really bored, and I felt like there was a lot of times throughout that I felt like the story could have just stopped and ended, but it kept going, so I felt like it was a little bit too long, but the very end of it kind of got my attention back. So I will finish the second book at some point in time when I get through all of my audiobooks that came available while I was listening to this one. So I had a lot of books come available then, so I will get to it. I enjoyed her other writing, so I definitely will finish it off, but this one isn't my favorite by this author. The next book I listened to on audio as well. It was called Alatsue by Darcy Little Badger. This book fulfilled the prompt that I needed for Herkiad, but it also helped in my goal of reading more books by Indigenous authors. I really enjoyed the storytelling style of this. This is geared towards more of a young adult audience. Could even skew down to middle grade, but more young adult. And I kept wanting to listen to this book. I wanted to know what happened next, and I really enjoyed the connection and theme of community and care for one's people throughout this whole story, and this just made me want to read more by this author in the future. So it is definitely on my list as an author that I want to read her backlist or their backlist. And it's about a young Indigenous girl who has a gift. I can't remember exactly how they described it in the story, but has a connection with the dead, and there's this piece of magic and understanding with her people, and she has to use that to kind of solve this mystery that's happening in her world. So I just really loved the storytelling of this, and I definitely think this is worth a read. The next book that I finished was another physical book, and it is also helping towards my goal of reading series that I have started. It is Everyone on This Train is a Suspect. This is the second book in the Ernest Cunningham series. So I picked this one up to read. I purchased this not that long ago. Yeah, it was an enjoyable time. I enjoyed the writing style. I like that breaking the fourth wall of how the author is talking to you like he is the author of the story that he's writing. So the main character is the author in the story, writing the story to you as the reader. So I find that storytelling style really interesting and different from what I've been reading, and I enjoyed it, and I will definitely pick up the rest of the series when I get around to it. It's not urgent because they don't like specifically connect. Each one is its own independent story, but I have a good time reading them. The next book that I finished was an audiobook that came available. I put this one on hold a while ago. It was the Rushworth Family Plot. This is another book continuing a series that I have started. It is a retelling of some Jane Austen works, and I believe this one was the fourth in the series, and then the fifth one I currently have on hold. I can't remember, but I liked this one better than the last one, I believe. And I like that I don't have to pay a lot of attention to it. There is a mystery plot to it, but it's very formulaic. So I didn't feel like I really had to pay attention to everything that was going on, and it was a good background book for me. Then the next book that I finished was another physical book. This was also a gift at Christmas. It was The Fisherman. This is a horror novel, and what's really interesting is somebody that I watch their book videos was just talking about this book not too long ago, which kind of piqued my interest to pick it up. I really enjoyed the storytelling style of this. It's almost like a story within a story, and like I wasn't quite sure where everything was going, but I enjoyed it, and I think that's all I want to say about it, because if you're going to read it, you kind of want to go into it not knowing what to expect. But I found it compelling, and it didn't take me very long to read. The next book that I finished was an ebook that I picked up because it fulfilled a Herkiad prompt, and that's the only reason. I did not like this book. It was The Windwalker. It was extremely disjointed. Like there was way too much, like too many storylines trying to happen, and everything just felt very surface level. Like I didn't care about the characters and what they were doing. I believe this is part of a series, but it is not one that I will be continuing, because I just kind of forced myself to read this book so I could get it over with, and I'm glad that I finally have it done. The next book was another audiobook that I listened to. I started doing a puzzle at the end of May, and so I put this one on as I was doing a puzzle. It's called Gray After Dark. I believe I had this one on hold because I saw somebody talking about it. It's like, okay, that sounds interesting. It is about a woman who gets kidnapped by preppers, and it just was really weird. Like, I don't think I enjoyed this one very much, and I also just felt like it was pretty predictable. Like I kind of knew what was going to happen. So there wasn't a lot of suspense to it, which is kind of what you want in this genre. I believe it was either a thriller or horror. And yeah, I just don't think this book was for me. I also I had another audiobook going at the time, and I kept prioritizing other audiobooks and books over that one, so that kind of showed me it wasn't for me. So the audiobook that I was prioritizing was The Hound of the Baskervilles, which is a part of the Sherlock Holmes series by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. I picked up this book for a variety of reasons. One, I've started the Sherlock Holmes series and I wanted to do that. It also helped me fulfill one of my Herkyard prompts. I'm finishing up this round of Herkyard. At the time I'm filming this, I have, I think, 4 books left to read, 3 or 4 books that I have left to read for it, and I have until the end of June. So I will be finishing that. And this was a great background book. So I was listening to this at a time where I had a lot going on. It was the end of the school year. I was trying to pack up my classroom. I was driving a lot. I was trying to clean up my house, all of those things. And this was a perfect book for it because I know the pattern of a Sherlock Holmes book, and I didn't need to use a lot of brain power to listen to this book. And then the final book that I finished in May was We All Want Impossible Things. This I read as an ebook on my Kindle, and I had downloaded this book a while ago. And this was a very hard book to read because it hit pretty close to home. So it is the story of a woman who has entered hospice and is dying of cancer. And it is this really beautiful picture of grief and pain and joy and celebration of life, in that profound grief of losing someone that you love. And so this is a story that just has kind of lingered and stuck with me for a while, just because there were pieces of it that mirrored my own life. So as hard as this book was to read at the time I was reading it, it felt like I was reading it at the right time for what I needed in my life. And it was a very short book. I believe it was only around 200 some pages, but I think this book found me at the right time and I read it. So that is all of the books that I finished in the month of May. I feel like I did a ton of reading in May, and I'm hoping that June will continue to be a strong reading month for me. We're about 1/3 of the way through. And that is all I have for today. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.